So I'll just say again quickly, thanks for coming. It's great to have you here. I'm Susan Blunt, one of the directors of Neighbors on Call, and my co-director, Becca Zirkin, is also here, and we'll be talking some more in a minute herself. Neighbors on Call, or NOC, as we like to say, is an all-volunteer organization. We are laser focused on electing Democrats to the North Carolina State Legislature from districts that will be won or lost by tiny margins. We take action in the way that is most impactful by speaking to voters at their doors all year, every year. And we have fun on purpose so we can stick it out for the long haul. NOC has grown considerably over the last 7 years. And for the 2022 election, we knocked about 30,000 doors. In 2024, we're going to need to knock even more. Our goal for 2024 is to break the Republican supermajority in the General Assembly to restore the governor's veto power. Just for the record, yes, we already did break the supermajority in 2018, and now we need to do it again. Here's looking at you, Tricia Cotham. We can break the supermajority this year, and we can reach a majority by 2030. We'll learn more about how we will do that at our next Zoom event, which we'll describe to you more at the end of this program. Of course, it's vitally important that we elected Joe Biden, a Democrat governor, and the Democratic judges in 2024 as well. Focusing on down ballot races helps to carry the candidates at the top too. However, the reverse is not true. Just focusing on the top of the ticket does not necessarily mean that votes will trickle down to candidates lower on the ballot. That's why we need to stick with our state legislative candidates all year. We need to increase their name recognition as much as possible. So, what would it take for us to break the supermajority? In the Senate, depending on who you ask, there are 6 competitive seats. Dems need to win 4 of them. And in the House, again, depending on who you ask, there are 10 seats that are competitive, and Democrats need to win 4 of those. As it so happens, 2 of these Senate districts and 3 of the House districts are in the Triangle area, which is where the vast majority of our volunteers live. A relatively small group of volunteers targeting a specific set of voters in tight legislative races can impact the future of the entire state. And because these critical districts overlap, we're actually doing double duty for the House and the Senate when we canvass there. Let's take a look at these districts and meet the candidates. All right, now I'll pass it over to you, Becca.
Hi, everybody. So let's start with talking about Senate District 18. It covers all of Granville County and the northern part of Wake County. This is a Democratic seat currently held by Senator Mary Wills Bodie. Representative Terrence Everett is running for this seat. And this is our 4th election cycle working with Representative Everett, which is why he is not on our new neighbors panel tonight, but you'll hear from him later. This Senate district overlaps the Granville County part of House District 32, which is currently a Republican seat, but it is one we can and must flip in 2024, and Bryan Cohn is the guy to do it. He serves on the Oxford Board of Commissioners, and he is a senior solutions engineer focusing on manufacturing, safety, quality, and compliance. Senate District 18 also overlaps House District 35, which is Terrence Everett's current seat. Evonne Hopkins will run to keep this seat blue. She is a family law attorney running her own business. Senate District 13 is in the southern part of Wake County. Democrat Sydney Batch currently represents this area, but in the latest crazy map redrawing, her district borders shifted a lot, and her 2024 district is now going to be safely blue. So we won't be canvassing for her in 2024. We already miss her, we know you do too, but she promises to spend time with us often. Senator Lisa Grafstein represents the current Senate District 13, which is in another part of Wake County, and she moved so that she could continue to serve in this new version of District 13. which means she has an entirely new set of voters who need to hear about her. She's an experienced legislator, but she's new to knock. Senator Grafstein is a civil rights lawyer and an outspoken advocate in the state Senate. House District 37 is within Senate District 13, and it is currently held by Republican Erin Perret. Safiyah Jackson is running to flip it. She is a nonprofit leader and an early childhood advocate. These new neighbors on the block will tell you more about themselves tonight with the help of our moderator, Dante Pittman. Dante is himself a new candidate. He's running to flip House District 24 in Wilson County. He's an officer in the North Carolina Army National Guard and chair of the board of directors of the Wilson County Department of Social Services. Thank you all so much for being here. And just a heads up to everyone in the audience that we are going to close the chat now to make it easier to focus on the panel discussion, and we're going to turn it back on later for the Q&A. And Dante, I will now pass it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Becca, and thank you to Susan and all of you here at Neighbors on Call. I will just tell you that I hear time and time again about the work and the power that comes with this group. So I know I join the other candidates in just being so thrilled to be with you here tonight. So the way we're going to do this is I have some suggested questions and then that we're going to run through, and I'm going to let the candidates know sort of what the time frame is for these so that we don't keep you all night. I heard you signed up to listen to a panel, not a sermon. So the first test for our candidates is to make sure that we are sticking to that. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is everyone is going to give a little description of themselves, an elevator pitch, if you will. And in that, you have to include one special interest or skill that you have that you won't be putting on your campaign website. So we need the elevator pitch plus this fun little question at the end, and we've got about 2 minutes to do it. And I'm going to lead off so everybody can see how we do it. So my name is Dante Pittman. As Becca already mentioned, I'm born and raised here in Wilson, North Carolina. I love my community. I will tell you that I would not have ever imagined that at the age of 27, I'd be running for the North Carolina House. But what we saw in 2022 is we saw that out here in Eastern North Carolina and Wilson County in particular, that our voters stayed home and we saw progress being rolled back. I'm running against one of the Republican extremists in the North Carolina House, and I'm running because I love my hometown and I love the state of North Carolina. I'm in the Army National Guard. I serve currently as a captain and a transportation officer. As was already mentioned, I'm the board chair of our Department of Social Services. And at least for a little while longer, I am our Wilson County Democratic Party chair. So when I tell you that I'm invested in us winning, it is just about all I think about every single day. And I know that with this group here, we're going to do it in 2024. And we're only going to be able to do it with your help. Now, the one thing that I will tell you that I'm not putting up on my campaign website, but is one of my very special interests and one of the skills that I have is that I love walking my 2 dogs out in the yard. And what we've seen at my household, I will share with you, I'm a newly married man, that when it comes to taking care of our pets, our 2 dogs and our cat, that is my special skill set, I've been told. In my household, that's my chore. That is what I'm talented at, my wife tells me. So while we have 3 pets, there's one person that's carrying the load here. And I know she's in the other room just rolling her eyes, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So I won't be putting that on my website, but if you know any folks that are volunteers that love their pets, come on and tell them to come to Wilson County because we love our pets here too. So with that being said, I did that in 2 minutes. That's how we're trying to do it tonight. And we will go ahead and I will pass it next on my screen to Safiyah Jackson.
All right. Thank you, Dante. Hi, everybody. I am Safiyah Jackson. Good to be here with you today. And I'm going to flip it and I'm going to start with my special talent. I want to share my talents and value around connectedness. And so I have been acknowledged for being able to see the big picture and connect the dots. I believe that there is value and purpose in everything. And so my friends and family always, and even in the workplace, count on me to like see the dots connected between very disparate things. And what I'm not going to put on my website, but that we all know is true, is that the life we live is full of ripple effects. And the decisions that have been made in this state has and will and across the country will create detrimental ripple effects if we don't stop it. And so while I will be running to flip the district from Aaron Paré and to bring new leadership into Southern Wake County, I won't be as explicit about the deleterious effects and the ripple effects of the kinds of policies that her and her party and the folks that she aligns with. But I will stand strong and really communicate my passion for early childhood. And so I want to share just a quick story with you all. I got my career started in corporate America, worked there for 7 years, and very quickly discovered that I did not just want to work and make shareholders another dollar. And because I'm so used to thinking about root causes and what causes these issues in the world that I want to change, all of the research back in 2000 kept bringing me back to early childhood. Anything that we want to affect in the social services and the human experience in our world that we want to affect change in, it starts in the early stages. And so because it's my special talent, it's how I became a child advocate. And when I left corporate America and started working in museums and the philanthropic world and higher ed and all kind of places where children and families were, it was because I knew that the first 5 years of life creates a ripple effect that is something that I stand for. And this campaign will open up a new conversation about that. And I look forward to sharing later about how important it is that we center children in the conversation, because the policies that our majority party have been passing through and ramming through are not going to create the ripple effects that will matter for an impactful North Carolina. So thank you. And I will pass it back to Dante to pick the next person. Or do I do hot potato to the next person?
Well, I thank you, Safiyah. I don't want anybody to be upset with you, so I'll pass it to somebody so they can be upset with me. I'm a little further away in Wilson County, so they can't get to me as easy. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So next, we'll pass it on to someone I've heard so much about, Miss Evonne Hopkins.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Evonne Hopkins. I live in North Raleigh. And today, my office is right on Falls of Neuse. And today I had the most exciting thing happen. I got to watch not one, not two, but 3 presidential motorcades, one of which was with my children. I have 2 boys. And it could not have been a more exciting day. My office and I were hanging out the window, screaming and so excited about democracy and about this election and about the fact that I'm involved in this election. Because us all being involved is what matters. If we all just stay home and be angry and frustrated and mad, nothing changes. And so each one of us is changing things today, tonight, right now, in this moment. And that change will impact our communities. My boys were so excited to talk to me about this motorcade. My office, the ladies in my office, we were jumping up and down and hugging one another because it was so exciting. The buzzkill was that I text Lisa, who sends me a photo back, front row of her and Joe Biden, which didn't quite seem fair, but she is a senator. So I guess, she gets a pass. But one of the things I was so proud of today is our community. I was so proud of our law enforcement and RPD. It was such a spectacular thing to see. I am in this election because I believe in North Carolina and I believe in the values of the Democratic Party. Been a Democrat for 20 years. I am a registered Democrat for 20 years. I am beyond frustrated at the things that we have seen step back in terms of women's reproductive freedom. This election cycle has me out of my very private bubble. I do a lot of high conflict family law litigation. I keep my personal life, my children, very private. Those of you who have tried to snoop on me have probably realized there's very little out there about me, and that's all very intentional, and it's all about to change. And I'm doing that because voting rights are at stake. Women's reproductive freedom is at stake. Education, there's so much that we need to be concerned about and we need to be vocal about. My little special talent that I won't tell anybody about is I've gotten, I deal with super disordered narcissistic people on the daily. And those of you who are probably used to a certain crowd at the Senate or the House are probably also used to dealing with those kind of personalities. So I've decided that when someone tries to personally attack me, that I've happened to bodybuild and do all this weightlifting that's become my secret talent. I'm just going to challenge people to a bench press or a deadlift and see, who can handle it. It'll be like dueling.
Well, that is wonderful. And from what I've seen in the General Assembly on the Republican side, they don't want to take you on there or have to deal with your intellect. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
I say bring it, right?
That's right. That's right. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Bryan Cohn.
Awesome. So good afternoon. Well, we're evening now. I'm still in work mode, so apologies. So one quick super fun fact that I always forget to disclose, so please don't want to feel bad for this. My last name is actually pronounced Cohn. Although it is spelled Cohn, often called Cohen, and I answer to all of it. I don't hear it anymore. But since we're running a campaign, we gotta say it correctly. But think of it as C-O-N as opposed to C-O-H-N. So I guess I'll follow suit. I'll start with my super secret talent and things I will keep off my promo material, I suppose. In my career, I do a lot of regulatory compliance. I have been working almost exclusively with FSMA, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act. This is something that was a keystone piece of legislation passed by Barack Obama, and or brought forth by the Obama administration, rather. And it's the first piece of food safety legislation in nearly 80 years brought to the United States. And I'm one of a few consultants out there that work within industry to interpret what the Modernization Act means and implement that for companies like Tyson and ConAgra and Smithfield and all these little mom and pop companies all over the country. So I have developed a really neat, keen ability to take the complex and turn it into bite-sized actionable pieces, taking something that can take decades and decades to fully implement and turn it into actionable items that companies can initiate immediately. So taking the complex and making it far simpler, and bringing people to the table who, as you can probably imagine, in the world of agriculture, which I come from, there's a lot of folks out there who who probably don't agree with our politics and just see this as an annoying piece of government oversight, but taking those elements, getting them implemented and getting people to the table and to embrace those pieces. So that's a talent that I've carried forth. It sounds really boring, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So that's my super secret skill. But a little bit about me. I am a city commissioner here in Oxford, North Carolina, beautiful Oxford, just north of the Durham area off of I-85. I'm here in Oxford with my beautiful wife and 3 lovely children, Jackson, Lila, and Rhett, and my wife, Ashley. I was originally born in Augusta, Georgia. My family is all from this area, though. So I think I've had a family member living continuously in the city of Oxford, or what is the city of Oxford, since before the United States was a thing. since we were a little wee British colony. I have grown weary of partisan politics in the United States. I think what drove me into politics was January 6th, in seeing the utter debacle that transformed the United States and transformed our politics when it unfolded before our very eyes. And I felt the only way for me to give back was, instead of getting angry and getting jaded, was to jump in and try to bring civility to politics, to our local politics. And my colleagues and I have, boy, did I hit the ground running. We have made multiple changes here in Oxford. We're one of the first communities in North Carolina to implement a fair wage for all city employees, our first responders. We were one of the key cities in North Carolina to embrace a social district and break the mold of small rural downtowns all across the state. And we have invested heavily in our infrastructure. Oxford, North Carolina has invested more in its infrastructure, water and sewer, than any other town our size in the United States. And we're continuing down that path. And that's one of the most equitable things we can do for our communities. It gives back to, they'll continue to give back regardless if you're Black, white, if you're rich, if you're poor. It doesn't matter who you are, you benefit from those infrastructure. We will not be a Jackson, Mississippi. We will not be a Flint, Michigan. And that is something that we're extremely proud of. We worked hard to receive grants and zero interest loans in order to pay for that, and have taken on a monumental task. And I've been proud to be a part of that in the nearly 3 years I've been on the board here in Oxford. So we want to be able to take that drive to the state, because frankly, the state legislature continues to cut municipalities off at the knees, the same way that they are destroying reproductive freedoms and the way that they are continuing to just strip freedoms away from folks, all in the name of deregulation or whatever they want to tout. There is less and less that we can do as municipalities to give back to the community and take care of our citizens. And we have to make sure that we break the supermajority. We have to make sure that we not only break the supermajority, but turn the tide and make sure that our communities are able to have a stronger voice in what impacts them in their lives. So we have a lot of work to do in order to get there. And I really appreciate the support of this group and the many other groups that have popped up here in Granville County over the last few months. Without you guys, this will not be possible, but we will get this done, and we will carry it into Raleigh. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Cohn. Thank you for the work you're already doing as an elected official to make sure we have the right changes happening all across North Carolina. Finally, on this question, we're going to go to another elected official, someone that I admire so much, that I know I've had the pleasure to talk to about what this means for North Carolina. We're going to hear from Senator Lisa Grafstein.
Thank you, Dante. And I'll tell you later on, I'll tell you why Dante should have stopped answering my calls a long time ago, but he didn't. He kept picking up when I called. I'll tell you about that later. But so I'm Lisa Grafstein. I serve Senate District 13, which currently is in northern Raleigh, North Wake County. And I currently live, though, in southern Wake County in the new district, Senate District 13, as was alluded to earlier, in the redistricting. My district moved in, so I just kind of followed it south to Wake County. But I've lived in Wake County for it's coming up on 30, it'll be 34 years this year. So when I moved to Wake County, there were about 400 and some odd thousand people in the county. And now I think we have about 1.2 million. So the vast majority of people in the county now who are in these growing towns and cities and municipalities weren't here back when I started in Wake County. But it's been an amazing thing to watch the county grow, watch it turn blue everywhere, except in the fringes where we're going to have to fight for these seats. So it's been a real pleasure to be here. For 29 of those 33 years, I've been a civil rights lawyer, first in my own practice, and then the last dozen years or so doing disability civil rights work. So civil rights work for people with disabilities, kind of on a statewide basis, working for a nonprofit. And what I learned through my work over those decades, and has been alluded to by so many folks already, and I think Safiyah and I are going to have a lot of the same themes in our overlapping districts, is that you really have to get to root causes of things. So much of the work that I've done over the last few decades in fighting for people's individual rights really starts with some bad policy making that leads to bad outcomes. And so when I was first approached about running in 2021, I said, no, why would you do that? That's silly. But then I started thinking about all the things we could do if we regain the majority. And, I know we're here to break the supermajority, and I'm all for that. And I know that we have a goal of 2030. I have a secret goal of sooner than that to to get us into the majority, right? Thank you. And we can do it. And one of the things that will get us there is that once we lock these Wake County seats down, we can turn our attention, we can turn our money elsewhere in the state, places that we can really pick up. And there's a Senate seat where Dante is that I would love to see him in someday. I think we can flip that area too. So that's sort of my background. I'll touch briefly on my special interest. So in those decades, and I feel like I have this privilege of counting my life in these decades of time, and I've been doing some of this stuff longer than some folks here have been alive. Looking at you, Dante. But one of the things that I've done for the last 25 years is that I've been a season ticket holder to the North Carolina State Wolfpack women's basketball games. Go Pack. And so one of the great things about being here tonight is that I didn't have to watch them lose, which they did to Miami tonight. It's been a great joy for my life. I have a son who's 24 who started going to games before he was born, and has been a lifelong fan as well. So I don't put that out there because why, but it's a great pleasure. The tickets used to be $5 and now they're not. So that's about me. I'm very excited to be here. One of the things that brought me back and made me move 45 minutes from my prior home is that having lived a year through the legislature, you think what it's going to be like, and there's really no way to prepare for some of the things that have happened. And I'm just so much more committed than I've ever been to doing the work that we need to do to get us out of the hole that has been dug for us by the Republican supermajority. So we'll talk more about that later too, I hope. But for me, this is a passion that is really about not just holding a seat, because, frankly, the work that we're going to do, the work that Evonne and Safiyah and Bryan and Dante and I are going to do, that's going to be great for this state, is going to happen several cycles down the road when we finally take the majority back and we reverse all the things that we're saying. And the investment that you all are putting in and that everybody else here is putting in is really going to pay off. And I live for that day. And I live for the day that Rachel Hunt is sitting up and presiding in the Senate instead of Mark Robinson. So anyway, thank you all. More to come, I guess, but I really appreciate everything that you do and the way that I've been embraced by this great community that has been serving Southern Wake County.
Well, thank you, Senator Grafstein, for your leadership in Raleigh already and all you're doing across the state to make sure we're moving forward. And because you're already serving in the legislature, this next question is going to come to you first. But I want all the candidates to know that for this question, because we could talk all night about this question, we're asking you to keep it to 1 minute. But the question is, what's your least favorite thing that Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly did last year? And again, I know we could spend hours talking about this. We're asking you to keep it short, though. What is the number one thing that keeps you burning up at night?
The number one thing to me is that they've targeted children. They've targeted children's education through the vouchers. They've targeted LGBTQ youth. They've done away with protections under our gun laws that affect children more than anybody, that affect our schools. So the cynical way in which children have been used and misused by this legislature fires me up. And I like to say things don't keep me up at night; they get me up in the morning. Right? These are the things that drive me to want to turn the tide here. So it's really what's happening for kids in our state. And I feel like I want to just follow Safiyah around and learn from her about early childhood, because I feel like she's got the right keys here. But to me, it's really the ways in which politics is being used in such a cynical way, in ways that are going to hurt our kids.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Cohn, we will move over to you next.
Only one. Okay. There's so many. throw a dart and just hit about 20 of them. I think for me, the number one thing is the attack on reproductive rights. So this is a slippery slope. I think it's one thing to say that morally I'm opposed to the concept of abortion. I don't know a single soul on earth that thinks the act of abortion is necessarily the first choice or a good idea. However, it's a decision that is between a woman and her doctor. And the fact that this was what the way the legislation currently sets with the 12-week abortion ban is merely a placeholder for a full ban on abortion. It is a placeholder for the removal of contraception. It is the placeholder for potentially rolling back aspects of interracial marriage, gay marriage. It's a slippery slope down a dark hole. Once we start taking away rights, as we're coming off of MLK, MLK Day on Monday, an injustice, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, essentially. So we're saying that if we start stripping rights away from women, we're going to go down that path, because that is they've blown that dog whistle and blown that dog whistle and blown that dog whistle. So we will absolutely fight that tooth and nail when we get to the legislature.
Thank you very much for that. Miss Evonne Hopkins, we will go to you next.
Thank you. It's reproductive freedom for me, hands down. And I will tell you, when I was watching this situation out of Texas, I couldn't believe what this poor woman had to do. She had to go to a judge and ask the judge what her doctor's telling her. Is that the proper medical decision, not the proper medical decision? Judge rules in her favor. Then it gets appealed, and some justices on the appellate benches are supposed to determine whether her medical decision is a valid decision. Women's reproductive freedom is not just about women's reproductive freedom. It's about women's rights. It's about women's freedom. There's not a man on God's green earth who's going to walk in front of a judge and ask the judge for permission to make a medical procedure happen on their body, and for a judge to make that decision. And that is so wrong and such a dial back for women's rights.
You were so right about that, and I'm glad that both you and Commissioner Cohn have raised that issue up. It's top of mind for all of us. Ms. Safiyah Jackson, we will go to you next.
Okay, ditto to throw the dart, but I have to go with HB 20. It is heartbreaking. We should not have legislatures legislating the bedroom. When I talk about ripple effects, when we are forcing births under the name of pro-life, it is sickening. It is anti-abortion. That's all it is. Because if it was pro-life, there would be significant investments in the children that are born, in the families that otherwise would have chosen this for their families. I will say again, I do not think that our elected officials, that when I get in that office, that anyone serving should be legislating the bedroom and private issues that families should be making for themselves. And this is a very personal issue for me, because when I was 15, my family and I had the choice to pursue a decision that created ripple effects for the rest of my life. And so when I speak about abortion, when I speak about reproductive health, when I speak about family planning, when I see it under attack, it is a personal issue for me. And I want every woman, every person, every family to be able to decide what is right for them.
Thank you. Thank you for your bravery and sharing your stories. And thank you all for being on the front lines, fighting for these important issues. I will tell you, I wasn't going to answer this question, but I'm going to take a minute myself, because there is one thing going on that just keeps me up. And now, like you said, Senator Grafstein, it's going to wake me up in the morning. One of the things I've seen as our board chair for Wilson County DSS is all across the state, we have a foster care crisis. We have children sleeping in DSS buildings overnight for days and weeks at a time. And at a time when this is going on, we are watching our state legislature cut corporate taxes. We're going to have a corporate tax rate of 0 here in a few years while we have this crisis going on. We're talking about children that don't have advocates right there for themselves. They're depending on all of us as community members to step up for them. And I just cannot understand for the life of me, as was already mentioned, how somebody that calls themselves pro-life could turn their backs on these children that need advocates. So like all of the other candidates, I will tell you, we could talk about the issues all night long, but that is one that I just at my core cannot understand. And along with these folks, we're going to fight to change that here in North Carolina. So before I get worked up and I deliver a sermon like I promised I would not, we're going to move on to our next question. And these are going to be a little more personalized for each candidate. So just understand that. And I'd ask that you would keep it to no more than 2 minutes if you can, so we make sure we have plenty of time for these good folks to ask questions on the back end. So this first one is for you, Commissioner Cohn. Tell us about the personality or personalities of your district. We know there's many parts to it, and we want to hear what are those personality and characteristics of your district.
Well, thank you for the question, and hard to keep this one at 2 minutes, but it is a fantastic and diverse district. We have a really robust community here. We are both Vance County and Granville County are really what we consider a tier 2 rural county. They are primarily agricultural driven, or at least formally, in a lot of instances. We are a poor community, but we're not poor, if that makes sense. We are rich with culture. We are rich beyond our wildest imagination in terms of the type of community that we have. I spent, pretty much every Sunday, at least 2 or 3 different churches, worshiping with different folks in the Hispanic community and the African American community, as well as our home church. And we have a community that likes to look out for one another, regardless of who you are, regardless of your background. We're a community that's not too terribly divided, at least as we've seen in other communities. I think that we're a community that's striving to find better ways to educate our children and better ways to provide opportunities to reach up out of poverty. We're a community that just wants our seat at the table, regardless of race and gender and creed. I think everyone here is proud to be from here. Many folks have been here for generations and generations, and they want to stay here. And as we see expansion coming from Raleigh, we're the last community, the last really 2 counties within the Greater Triangle area to not fully take on all the growth. So it is coming. Development is every single day. We have new communities applying for rezoning in order to build. We want to make sure that we maintain the character and maintain the people who have been here generationally, and that we're not overly gentrified. We're not pushing our elderly out of their homes who have been there for, again, decades and decades. We're a community that cares about each other. And I'm excited and honored and humbled to represent them in Oxford and soon all of Vance and Granville.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohn. Ms. Jackson, how is your district changing? And we're talking about changing. We know what the other side does about district lines and all of that. What we're interested in is how is it changing as far as demographics are concerned?
Yes. Well, as Senator Grafstein said earlier, it is turning blue. I'll tell you, there is one precinct in the district that elected and went for Aaron Paré previously in 2020. And in 2022, when they were voting for the municipal elections, they went blue. And that is in large part because of the new development. So the southern tip of Wake County has seen lots of growth over the years with Fuquay and Varina, and I'm sorry, well, the merging of the two over the years, but Fuquay, Varina, Holly Springs, Willow Springs. But the eastern part of the district where I live is unincorporated Raleigh, and there is so much growth. It's exciting to see the growth. I think we need to handle it responsibly, as so many trees are being torn down to build homes. But what that's doing is allowing for different perspectives to come in, families with young children. There are about 13% folks over 65, 13% Black community. And what I'm most excited about is the growth and the folks that are coming in to help balance and shift the political tide down there. And that is why we will win, because of new perspectives, those that are actually going to stand for the issues that we stand for.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. For those of us that are not in Wake County right now, we are all the time hearing about how Wake County is transforming and how they're going to help pull us over the finish line. So understanding that area a little more is helpful for my frame of reference as we are doing our work over here. Yeah. Senator Grafstein, I will go ahead and tell you this next question is not fair. It's not fair to ask you to answer it in 2 minutes, but we're going to do it anyway. Tell us just a little bit about the battles that you've been fighting in the North Carolina General Assembly, and particularly if you could mention how the other side has tried to silence you through redistricting.
Right. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, the districts are moved around, and it wasn't just me. So I wanted to say one of the things that happened this year. This is my first year in the Senate, and but I've talked to folks who've been around a while. The caucus, our Senate caucus, and this happened on the House side too, the Democrats started fighting back in ways that we have not fought back before. And it started with the abortion ban debate. We all debated the full allotted amount of all 10 minutes that we were allowed. And we held the floor for the longest that a debate has been held, the longest the floor has been held in a decade. And this was an intentional move on the part of Democrats in the House and the Senate to just start fighting back. Once you're in the supermajority, there's literally nothing to lose, right? And so I've been very outspoken. My colleague Natasha Marcus was very outspoken. They drew her completely out of her district in a way that she could not stay in her hometown and run. So she's running for help me out, insurance commissioner now, and she'll be great at that. But it was clearly targeted. We started hearing the rumors as soon as we had that abortion debate. We started hearing the rumors about who was going to be targeted in redistricting. So the battles that we fought were really group battles. They were really us coming together. And I will tell you, I know you all already love Sidney Batch. I don't know if you can love Sidney Batch any harder, but this woman has led the charge on Democrats just refusing to back down. And she's very quiet on the floor. Like Sidney doesn't, you've heard her talk. She doesn't talk like that on the floor. She's a measured professional woman. But I tell you what, she has been the brains and engine behind so much of what has happened. It has been just such a life lesson, but also just a masterclass to watch her work and to learn from her, but to be part of the effort that she and particularly and Michael Garrett have spearheaded. So we fought back, and I was vocal. Natasha Marcus was vocal, and they did target us in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that drives me, I tell people, like, I'm the youngest of 7, and I was the only girl. So if you want me to do something, tell me I can't, right? So if you're going to come at me, I'm not going to sit back. So and this, I'll get to why I called Dante so much this fall is one of my big things became, we need to run somebody. Anderson Clayton, the governor, were talking about we need to run somebody in every district. So I was so vocal about this within the caucus that they said, well, just be the chair of the recruitment group. And so we've been working on that for months, and Dante worked so hard to find us people. And so so it's been a constant struggle. So all that's to say, like, they targeted me. We had a lot of battles, a lot of the LGBTQ bills, because I'm only the only queer member of the Senate. Like, I felt like I needed to speak up for the kids in our state. And so I don't think that earned me any friends either. So the battles were my pleasure to fight in a lot of ways, but it was a very draining process. But the camaraderie and the teamwork that's been involved and that's going to keep being involved has really kept me going. So that was more than 2 minutes, and I talk really fast. So I'll shut up now, but all that's just to say, like, I'm excited to get back to work.
Well, I will tell you, Senator Grafstein, because that was so unfair, I was over here looking, well, if she goes 5 minutes, then we've asked her the question and I know she's going to answer it. So thank you for keeping it to that. And I will just say for the record, I did not mind a single bit getting a phone call from you because that was something that inspired me when we were talking last fall and summer to make sure we had quality candidates around our state. So for the last question for this portion, we are going to pass it over to Ms. Evonne Hopkins. And the question is, what's an issue that's top of mind for voters in your district?
So my district is really a blend. It has, so it is made up of North Raleigh, Wake Forest, Roseville. They've kind of, I don't know if anybody's looked at the map, but it's like this big smudge of Wake County where they go to the Durham, Granville, and Franklin borders. And then they carve out these, there's a little like a boot of Italy in there. And then they've carved out Bedford to make sure that, none of the Democrats get to vote. And my district is made up of like $2 to $20 million mansions, horse farms, working class people, people who have lived up in this area when it was still farmland, people who have come and developed it from the when it was from farmland into these huge housing communities, like these oasis type housing communities. Everybody wants everything at their fingertips. There's tons of infrastructure. And I would think that for my district, I think that the economy is a really important issue because there's so much growth. And I think with that comes infrastructure. So there's so many new developments. There's so many new grocery stores. There's new hospitals. There's new office parks. So we have so much growth. We have huge communities moving in. We also, with that, have an enormous amount of traffic that is not properly dealt with and has a very poor plan. So we deal constantly with enormous lines of traffic where people up in the north are trying to get all the way down to 540 instead of doing something simple like expanding 98 to Durham and the park. Everyone's coming all the way down, going to 540, going to 40, going to the park. And it's just so much traffic and it's just really foolish. So our community wants the growth. They want everything at their fingertips, but we need to be mindful of the impact that it's going to have on our parks, which we love, and our water system. But we also need to be mindful about the traffic and the impact that it's having, just in our community.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you all for working with me. I think we did a good job of not keeping folks too long on one question, but we really spanned a lot of questions with that segment. And I think that I saw folks nodding their head and I saw some hand clapping and some folks cheering. So I think we're on the right track with this group. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Becca. She's got a little more business for us. So Becca.
Thank you so much. We will turn it back to you in a few minutes for Q&A, and we may end up going a few minutes past 7:30 if that's okay with the panel, just to get a couple of questions in. But the chat is open, so you feel free to drop your questions for the panel in the chat if you like. We are obviously really, really excited about these candidates, and we really, really need them to win. So that is why we're going to have to canvass our little patooties off this year. And we are bringing in a pinch hitter to make that case for canvassing, Representative Terrence Everett. Thank you for being here with us. Can you tell us, why is canvassing a good use of our volunteer time? Why should we start doing it now?
Why, yes, Becca. Yes, I can. I love being the seasoned pro now. It's been 4 cycles now. Thank you all for being here. It just always good to be back with my Neighbors on Call family. You all have been with me from the beginning, and it's made all the difference. And everyone on the call, the candidates, we all know and we all think about the sacrifice that candidates make, but it's the sacrifice that you all make too. Because nobody wins these elections alone. I have never won a single election. We have won elections. And of all the folks that we've met over the years, I'm the guy who lost in 2016. And it was just me and my campaign manager knocking on doors. And 2 years later, Neighbors on Call shows up and the entire world shifted. Every other weekend, we had an army showing up, and it makes all the difference in the world. And, when I decided to run for Senate, we decided to do this again. One of the big things that played a role in that decision was Neighbors on Call is going to be there. I'm not going to be alone. I'm not jumping into the fire without my friends. And Becca will tell you, that was one of the first calls I made after we decided to do it, was to Neighbors on Call. This is the entire game. And I say that with 3 cycles of experience now, of having worked with them, knowing what they can do. It is everything. Money counts, but going to the doors, talking to folks, making that connection means the world. And so the work that you all are going to do is going to make the difference. And we know nothing is promised. If the election goes sideways, you're going to know, you show up every weekend that is possible, you're going to know you did everything you could. And that's going to give you that peace of mind. We win this, and we will win these elections. You're going to know that's your win. And these are our wins. Neighbors on Call took a hard, red, solid stronghold, and they made it blue. And they held it blue. And I'm going to run for a seat that's a blue seat because of the work that they did. And they make it easier. They take off the burden, and they are everything to us candidates. And so the work that you all do, we will never be able to say thank you enough. You will never be appreciated enough, but the entire state owes you a debt. So I'm asking you every weekend that you can get out there, make a difference. I can't think of a better way to spend that time. You're angry at Trump? Come help us. You're angry at Tim Moore and Phil Berger and what they've done to our state? Come help us. You hate Perret? Come help us. There is work to be done, and I promise you, we will never leave you wanting more. We will always have the work for you. So thank you. I look forward to seeing all of you. And visit all the sites. Come help all of these candidates. Get to know them. Some are going to be closer than others. Get to know them all. Take a weekend, travel, meet folks. It's going to be worth it. I promise.
Thank you so much for that, and for just lifting all of us up for the work that we do, but we are so grateful to you, the candidates. You are the ones putting everything out there, and we're just happy to be able to play some role. So thank you so much for that. We at Neighbors on Call understand that canvassing can be scary. If you haven't done it, we totally understand if you're nervous about it. And I just want to tell you what you can expect. When you show up at the canvass, the candidates will be there to greet you. A knock point person will be there to answer any questions you have. The campaign will give us a few simple talking points to use at the doors. We're not making things up. And they give us a targeted voter list, because we are only talking with like-minded people, but they might not vote or they might not complete the ballot. We're not at the doors arguing with anybody. And you don't need to be an expert about anything. You just need to be at the door and be a friendly face. And you'll always be with a partner. And if you like, you can sign up as a silent canvasser. We will match you with a mentor who will do all of the talking, and you'll help record the data. So you can do this, and we need you. Susan, I'm passing it back to you to tell us about the camp schedule.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm in
Yep.
this time? Good.
Yep.
Okay, here are the canvases that NOC is supporting in January and February. By the way, so far, 95 people have already signed up for them, and some of those folks have signed up for more than one canvas. So here we go. The first one is January 28th in Wake Forest for Evonne and Terrence Everett. And then our second one is February 3rd in Fuquay Marina with Safiyah Jackson and Lisa Grafstein. And then the third one on the books for us at the moment is, there we go, is in Creedmoor, Sunday, February 11th, 1 to 4. Again, Terrence Everett, and now we know to call Bryan Cohn will be canvassing for him. So, and by the way, did you know that Creedmoor is only 30 minutes from Hillsborough and 15 minutes from parts of Durham? So it's just around the corner. Now, we have a new March canvas that we're telling you about tonight on March 23rd, a special day of action with County to County and the Wilson County Dems to help out none other than Dante Pittman. Help him flip that seat in Wilson County. Dante, can you tell us a little more about it?
Absolutely. I will just say, and I want to answer the question that's already come in while I answer this, is how are we going to get folks motivated to turn out and vote? I will tell you, Wilson County is a blue county. We are the home of some great North Carolina leaders like Governor Jim Hunt, Betty McCain, Congressman G.K. Butterfield, and so many more. Like a lot of Eastern North Carolina last time around, our folks didn't show up. And so what we are doing this time, as we have gone back to, number one, what we know works, and number two, trying innovative approaches. We are getting started early. Going back to the fall of last year, I have been at churches, at community groups. I have had folks calling me that hadn't seen me since I was 10 years old, inviting me to come to their barbecues. And what we're doing is we're telling folks we mean business here. This isn't only about Wilson County, it's about all of North Carolina. So what we are doing is we are hitting the ground early. And on this date, March 23rd, that Saturday starting at 1 p.m., we would love to have you come join us. We have a new Democratic Party headquarters here in Wilson County that opened up last year. That's where we're going to be using as our headquarters. We're going to invite you in. Neighborhoods around it are friendly territory. We just need to get the word out. And then Ann Henley from County to County told me I might not should suggest this yet, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Once we're done at the end of the day, I have a room reserved at the back of Parker's Barbecue for anybody that wants to come, and we will show you what Eastern North Carolina barbecue is all about.
That's great. That's just great. Okay, we're going to make a fun day out of it, and the details will be coming out soon. And soon we'll also have more options for you for canvassing in March. So just stay tuned. More news to come from us. On February 7th, the entire leadership of the state Democratic Party is coming to talk about their plans for taking North Carolina back by 2030. And if you haven't heard our chair, Anderson Clayton, speak yet, you definitely won't want to miss this. Please RSVP for all these canvases and events on our website. I believe in the chat, the link is there, and you can just go visit the neighborsoncall.org website and click on the buttons for RSVPing, and you will be in. All right, so Dante, I'm going to hand it back to you for a few audience questions.
Okay, so the way we'll do this for our candidates is that we have quite a few questions that have already been put out there. I'm keeping track of them. And as they come in, I will pass them to one of you. I do ask that you try to keep it brief because we want everybody to get a chance to answer these wonderful questions. So Senator Grafstein, this first one we will pass to you. The question comes, how can voting rights be protected? That's one of the things that we've seen. It was mentioned here in a specific location, but we've seen it all over the state of North Carolina. What can we do to ensure those rights are protected?
I mean, it's use them or lose them, right? I mean, a lot of the education that has to go on is about voter ID, is about how people can make sure that their registration is current. So a lot of what is happening at the doors also is when I've been out knocking, and I don't, is that people are learning about the fact that an election's coming up. They're learning about what they need to do. So we really need to push out messaging, because the voting rights litigation that's going on is going to go on, right? And we can't count on good outcomes because of the way the courts are now. All we can do all we can do is win. All we can do is win so that we can turn the tide. We need to get Allison Riggs reelected to the Supreme Court. We need to do all the things that they're trying to make it harder for us to do, right? Republicans want us to give up, right? They want us to give up. That's what all this is about. And, nothing is inevitable about their victory if we continue to push forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson, this next one, knowing your expertise when it comes to our children, I want to pass this one to you. Folks, we had quite a few folks that have already mentioned in the chat our public schools and how they're under attack and under siege in so many ways. In your mind, how can we mobilize these public school parents, moms and dads who don't understand SB 49 and how they're working and how it's hurting our kids? How can we mobilize these folks?
Sure. Being an early childhood advocate, I would say we first need to mobilize and engage those folks that cannot work because they don't have access to early childhood education programs. For the folks that want to defund public education, we can just take a page from the way early childhood schools are run as private small businesses, and it does not work to create access for children. And so what I think is that if we reach out to people, let them know that we understand the impact that they experience, not just in the preschool days, but also in the lack of funds and the lack of stable teachers in elementary and high school. Our children should not have a rotation of substitute teachers because we're not paying teachers a fair and livable wage. And so as with families, parents that have children in public school or preschool, any voters, we have to do our job, as Lisa said. If we get out there and get people mobilized to get to the polls, all these antics won't work. And so I say shortly, we've got to let them know that everybody on this call cares about them, see them and invite them and build relationships and make it easy to join canvases. And thank you for Neighbors on Call. Make it easy for them to get involved and get educated.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Commissioner Cohn, because of how you describe you getting into partisan politics, this next question, I'm really interested in what you think. And we're talking about democratic enthusiasm, and we're looking at what we see of this MAGA supermajority, and I'm trying to keep my comments to myself on that. But what do you think we need to do to engage with Democrats, get folks excited? How can we pull them off the sidelines and get them to the voting booth and get them to volunteer?
It's a great question, because we have lovingly call them our lazy Democrats. They're dotted around the county, the ones that they're like, not a big deal. What am I going to go to the polls for? We went out and we beat them doors the last two cycles. I mean, we beat them down, and we had, I think, so just kind of give you a representation here. We just came off of our mayoral election where we just got our first African-American and Latino mayor here in Oxford. That came from two cycles of beating doors and getting people involved. And people here in this particular county are not so much into the social media and mailers. It's going door to door. It's looking people in the eyes, and it's making sure they understand the impact of what's on the ballot, why it's important, right? And as we continue to get that message out cycle after cycle, we're building enthusiasm back in the Democratic Party. It doesn't feel like all hope is lost for them. So it is a personal reach out and touch someone, look them in the eye. I cannot tell you how valuable it is that the work you guys will be doing, going door to door, because it matters, and it will reinvigorate and re-energize our base. If we can just look them in the eye and explain to them why it's important. And we're doing that here in Granville County now. And I expect that we will not just turn this county blue and turn this seat back to blue, but we will do it in a big way because we are going to go out and we are going to touch those folks 2 and 3 times. They're going to be, I mean, we'll just go pick them up and take them to the polls at some point. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be, but we're going to touch them one by one in order to get that that enthusiasm back where it needs to be.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Cohn. And Ms. Hopkins, the final question to you. I wanted to highlight this. One of the comments that was brought up was going back again to voter protection, the idea around intimidation. And the question to you is, what does your campaign envision as far as having a group of people, a community around to make sure voters in your district are not alone? What kind of messaging are you all doing to let them know this is a movement behind you to make sure nobody is intimidated and prevented from voting?
Well, isn't that what we're doing right now by knocking on doors, going out into the community and just infiltrating? Terrence and I are going to be out on January 28th. I will be doing my first canvas with every one of you. I will be knocking on doors. My boys are going to be with me doing their first canvas. And I think our first presentation of that is to be out in the community and to be active and let people know, look, we're not scared. We're empowered. We're strong. We have a lot to say and we want to see change. And that's the only way that we are going to effectuate change is by putting ourselves out there and actually doing something. And I'm hoping to see every single one of you because this is my first canvas. And so I'm hoping that you'll come and support me. I actually have to go because I have a flight to catch. So I'm going to also say goodbye. But I wanted to very quickly thank all of you for your thank you notes. I have saved every single one of them. And the reason why I saved them is when this election gets ugly and I'm feeling down and upset, my husband's actually the one who put him in an envelope for me. And he's like, you're saving these so that you can read these to feel, strong again and realize what you're doing. So I wanted all of you to know that I know you took time to do that and I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, and thank all of our candidates for all of the hard work you're doing. And this collaboration has just been amazing. I know it's only going to continue as we keep moving North Carolina forward. So thank you all. Thank you to the Neighbors on Call for joining us and for being such great team members with us. And I'm going to pass it now to Becca to close us out.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for putting it all on the line for all of us. We are so grateful to you for what you are doing. And Dante, thank you for moderating a wonderful conversation. And thank you to everyone in the audience for being here to kick off 2024 with style. And we will see you on the canvassing trail very, very soon in force.